Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don MacCauley. Today we're welcoming program author Bernard Leo Remakus, and he is the author of The Paraclete. Before I bring in today's guest, a quick reminder that selected interviews are available on our iPhone app, which can be downloaded in the App Store, as well as on TV on the Roku channel and Amazon Fire TV. Our app name on all platforms is simply The Author Show. Bernard, how are you?
I'm fine, Don. How are you today?
Good. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Don, I've been practicing internal medicine in rural northeastern Pennsylvania for the past 40 years. During that time, I've published 5 novels, 3 medical books, 1 screenplay, 200 journal articles, and along with my wife raised 3 great children that are all medical doctors.
So tell us about your book.
The Paraclete is a psychological thriller. It begins with a famous Catholic theologian, Father Paul Tielman, meeting a parish priest and 13-year-old altar boy at a rectory in San Diego. Several days after their meeting, the altar boy dresses in full religious attire and jumps to his death from the Coronado Bridge. When Tielman learns of the suicide and discovers that the boy took his own life because of repeated sexual abuse by his parish priest, he feels guilty that he failed to detect a pedophilic relationship during their meeting. Tielman immediately consults an expert on pedophilia, an elderly priest who previously worked as a paraclete, or advocate for priests with psychological impairments. After Tielman learns more about pedophilia and accidentally discovers a naturally occurring seed that contains a poison more lethal than ricin, he returns to San Diego to visit the parish priest. His visit triggers a veritable epidemic of unexplained deaths among pedophilic priests in the United States. Discovering a pattern to the recent demise of dozens of Catholic priests and suspecting Tielman as a serial killer, a veteran FBI agent whose own husband was the victim of pedophilic abuse finds herself in the middle of a moral dilemma. Should she immediately arrest the suspected serial killer, or should she take her husband's advice and let the killer continue to rid the Catholic Church of its pedophiles? That's the question of the book, and obviously to get the answer, you have to read it.
Now, who did you write your book for specifically? Who's your target audience?
My target audience includes readers who enjoy psychological thrillers, murder mysteries, or crime novels, readers who want to gain a better understanding of the Catholic Church, its history, or the current existential crises that have caused many Catholics to leave the Church, readers who want to learn more about the psychological makeup, monitoring, and treatment of pedophiles and other sexual predators, readers who are interested in law enforcement's approach to profiling, identifying, and apprehending serial killers, students taking literature, creative writing, psychology, or theology courses in Catholic colleges and universities, and finally, readers who are just interested in reading a novel that has memorable characters, a well-developed plot, and a fresh voice. And to be sure, Don, The Paraclete is an adult novel. It's not intended for children because of the subject matter.
Now, could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you would say runs throughout your book?
Sure. First of all, the definition of a paraclete is that there are 2 different definitions. In religion, the paraclete is a reference to the Holy Spirit. In the secular world, a paraclete is a person who's an advocate or a comforter or a helper for people in need. And if there's one central message in the book, it's that we all have the capacity to be a paraclete and help others who can't help themselves.
So if you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
Well, for ages, theologians have asked a very important question. What is the purpose of life? And as the Paraclete convincingly demonstrates through the character of Reverend Paul Tielman and his love interest in the book, a beautiful nun by the name of Sister Michelle, the purpose of life is to live it.
So if you compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
A few professional reviewers have already favorably compared the Paraclete to such works as Primal Fear, Doubt, and Spotlight. Personally, I feel the Paraclete combines the mystique of the Catholic Church as seen in the Da Vinci Code with the raw energy of Death Wish.
Now, do you feel this subject matter will potentially turn some readers off?
The subject matter of any given book or movie can turn off potential readers or viewers. I know because it took me years to finally watch Schindler's List, a movie about innocent Jews being killed during the Holocaust. After I finally sat down and watched the movie, I realized the subject matter of a book or movie may not be as important as how skillfully the subject matter is portrayed. So today, I rate Schindler's List among the greatest movies I've ever seen. And as this pertains to the Paraclete, there's no question that pedophilia is not the kind of topic that makes a potential reader get all warm and fuzzy. But pedophilia is only a backdrop for the Paraclete. At no time does the book describe the actual horror of a pedophilic act. Instead, pedophilia is treated abstractly. Just as some readers may not want to read a book about pedophilia, others may not want to read a book they mistakenly believe to be anti-Catholic. For the record, I'm a practicing Catholic and would never write anything that would discredit my own faith. It's true that the Paraclete does deal with current existential crises within the Catholic Church, but it also provides potential solutions. So the book is actually pro-Catholic on many different levels.
So tell us about a few of the other characters in the book.
There are quite a few memorable characters within the book. There are two old priests who Father Tielman meets on a cruise to Hawaii. Father Edmund Prosky, who's a former Paraclete and advocate for impaired priests, and his traveling partner, Father Bill Cunningham, who's a retired biochemistry professor from Georgetown. They sort of set Tielman straight. Tielman wants to change the church back into old-time religion, and these two old bucks are trying to convince him that that's not the way it has to go. It has to go in an entirely different direction. Sister Michelle is Tielman's love interest, a beautiful nun who he meets on the cruise, and she comes with her own baggage, and so Tielman and Sister Michelle go through existential crises together, and they help each other out. There's a housekeeper in San Diego, Mother Murray, who describes herself as somebody who's taken care of the rectory ever since the saints were all choir boys. She adds some important distinction throughout the entire book. There's the FBI agent, Joanne Faraday, who's on Tielman's track as a serial killer. There's her father, Father Richard Frost, who was an Episcopalian minister who was brought into the Catholic Church and allowed to become a Catholic priest. So there are a lot of different characters that add a lot of different flavor to the book.
So what's one of the most surprising or interesting facts you discovered while doing your research for the Paraclete?
I found quite a few, and I'll just mention maybe two or three of them. The first is that Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict XVI both instituted separate programs that allowed married Protestant ministers, mainly from the Episcopalian Church, to become Catholic priests and remain married. More than 100 of these priests are still serving as parish priests throughout the United States today. Another interesting fact, it's a statistical fact. In 1970, there were 59,000 Catholic priests in the United States, but by 2017, the number had dwindled down to 35,000, and the number continues to decrease because of retiring priests and low seminary enrollments. And the final interesting fact is that the Rosary pea, which has many other different names, grows wild throughout South and Central America, the South Pacific, and states like Florida and Alabama. And it's extraordinarily interesting because it contains abrin, a substance that is more lethal than ricin and undetectable in the human body by conventional laboratory means. So if you went into an emergency room after being poisoned with abrin, nobody would understand it, nobody would know it because they wouldn't be able to test for it. People who accidentally ingest the contents of a single rosary pea are usually dead within 3 to 4 days of what appear to be natural causes. So the rosary pea and its contents play a very important role in the Paraclete.
Now, did your environment or upbringing play any major role in your writing?
Sure. I had a very good education. I learned to write as a parochial school student and started developing my own writing style in college. My writing always received approval and encouragement from my father, whose own writing style emanated from his work experiences in the military and government, and my mother, who wrote in a beautiful poetic style. because of its strong academic foundations and continual parental approval and encouragement, my writing style developed with confidence, which is something I've always been able to use to my advantage.
So what can you tell us about this genre and why you decided to write in this genre?
Because of my background as a physician, I enjoy writing medical fiction and psychological thrillers. And I know this has been said many times before, but I really think it's very important as an author to write about what you know.
So how would you describe your writing style?
I'd probably describe it as being clear, purposeful, and recognizable. It's a funny thing, but occasionally I'll go on the internet to some blog and I'll put in my 2 cents with a screen name, and I'll get phone calls from people all over the country who know me, and they'll say, "Did you just blog about the Phillies, or did you just blog about the Celtics?" Because whoever wrote that must know you, because it sounded just like you. So people recognize my style.
So are your characters pure fiction, or do you draw from people you know in real life?
My characters are purely fictional, but they're frequently composites of people I've met. A typical character in one of my novels may have the appearance of one person I know, the mannerisms of a second, and the vocal characteristics of a third.
So in your opinion, who should buy the Paraclete?
The people that I've already mentioned in the target audience are the people who should buy the Paraclete. As I mentioned, the people who enjoy the genre, people interested in Catholicism, people interested in the whole phenomena of pedophilia and sexual predators, people interested in law enforcement's tracking of serial killers, students who really want to be able to evaluate their own faith and take a critical look at it, and people who just like reading a good book.
Do you have a website?
No, I don't. Anything that concerns any of my books or my writing can be found on my webpage on Amazon.com. You just put in Remakus in the search engine, or on Reader's Favorite. Just plug in Remakus and all my books will come up, and there'll be author profiles and everything about how to acquire my books.
Could you spell your name for us, please?
Remakus.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Bernard Leo Remakus, and he is the author of The Paraclete. Bernard, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Don, and thank you to the Author Show for allowing authors to showcase their work.
This is Don MacCauley wrapping up another edition of the Author Show. Go out there, buy The Paraclete today, and please share this interview with your friends so that they too have the opportunity to discover our guests and their work. The Author Show can be accessed at any time at theauthorshow.com. Selected interviews can also be found on major platforms like Amazon Fire TV, the Roku channel, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, and many more. And whether you're an author who would like to be featured or a reader in search of new books to read, The Author Show is a great place to start. Check us daily as we continue to introduce wonderful authors of very interesting books on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.